Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Module 3 discussion. Buckle up, it's quite a ride here. We got a lot of questions to get through. So the first one that I chose for question number 1 or section number 1 of picking the theories from the chapters and why I picked those. So I first started with the human relations theory. I thought that it brings an awareness of being human to the organization and to workers. So instead of seeing workers like just that cog in the mighty machine of the organization, they become people again with needs and abilities. So that humanity piece there. Communication in this theory is used as a tool to foster relationships within the organization with the end goal of being more productive. So in this theory, communication is really just a means to an end. It's not the focus itself, but it's better than some of the earlier theories where communication is really just, top down and, direction, basically. So the explanation of the human relations theory included a description of privilege pay, which caught my attention. I had never heard of that phrase before or that term, but I am familiar with the concept. And as I started to read, it kind of lights were kind of going off in my brain. So I had this experience at my job where my manager would dialogue with me about managerial issues that she was facing, maybe interpersonal things with other managers and leadership. The conversation was more on the level of peer-to-peer than boss to worker. This level of trust that she showed me, I can see now, has led to my more favorable opinion of her. And she, probably gained my support through that, although unbeknownst to me what was happening, and hopefully she wasn't purposefully doing that either. But anyway. The second theory I chose was the human resources theory. So this theory is even better, in my opinion, than the human relations theory. It further develops the treatment of workers in that they are viewed as contributing creativity and unique ways of thinking and approaching problems within the organization. Within this framework, there's the hierarchy of needs approach, Maslow, that takes into account the worker's basic human needs and fosters an organizational commitment to better treatment of workers. I can see how this theory could explain a shift I've experienced in my mindset toward my own organization and my job specifically. When I was hired, I thought I was getting like 15 to 20 hours a week. It was never really clear. I knew it was part-time. Well, it turned out to be just 8 hours a week, and I was really disappointed about that. But over time, I was given more hours, and it was very helpful. So that's what I really needed for our, financial responsibilities. But then, all of a sudden, the hours were cut again, and I was back down to the original 8. So I was super frustrated. I was also sort of at a point where I was realizing I don't have sick pay, I don't have retirement, I don't have vacation. When there's a holiday, I can't work because we're closed, yet I have to scramble to make up for those hours later. It was very stressful. Well, what happened, all of that led to really frustration, like I said, and dissatisfaction with my job. Well, fast forward a few years. So I was given permanent hours. I now have 30 hours a week, guaranteed. I have sick leave and vacation. I have, I have retirement that I'm building. My attitude toward my job and my organization has completely changed in one aspect. Because of those things. So because I don't have the stress and worry of, those bottom level basic human needs, I can focus more on my job and doing better at it. So that worry about, the hours and when kids are sick, having time to actually take them to the doctor or just stay home with them, is resolved and becomes not an issue. So then, although I work for a public health organization and they talk a lot about meeting people's basic needs in the community, especially, to me it seemed like they didn't always consider the importance of meeting their own employees' basic needs. So that was kind of where I saw, the breakdown there. All right, so for chapter 4, I thought the phenomenological tradition reflects the way I process and understand the organizations I'm a part of. Through conversations, observations, and reflection, I tend to gather and interpret information about the organization, and then from that form an understanding of it. This approach helped me to see how we come to know organizations better over time. It seems obvious, but the theory really does just kind of put a label on it and an explanation there. Also from chapter 4, there's the systems theory. That stood out to me as well because of its emphasis on seeing the organization as a biological system. I thought that was an interesting approach. What I like about it is that it explains why different situations and combinations within an organization really will have an effect on the nature and the function of the organization. The suggestion that the process of natural selection can be applied to an organization is an interesting one. It makes sense in this light that the organization can evolve over time. It takes on a very different feel than it once did depending on how the personalities within this organization have shifted. So, maybe some people leave who have, are going a certain direction. New people come in who are headed a different direction. And so the whole organization is going to shift and change and mold depending on all those personalities. As leadership and employees come and go, you find yourself working in maybe a whole different place than where you first were hired. So I found that to be the case in my situation at work with my manager, with a new manager in the last few years. But I've also noticed it on a larger scale in our organization. So again, as leadership changes and staff changes and the leadership have different priorities and different goals, we tend to go different directions. Okay, so the negatives. Chapter 3 mentioned the bureaucratic theory. It explained it as it said it's not supposed to be associated with red tape and inefficiency. But supposedly it's a way to ensure there's order, consistency, reason, and reliability. That's the goal. It all happens as a result of rules and enforcement of those rules. Well, when I was reading that theory, all I could think about was my experience of bureaucracy. So we lived in St. Petersburg, Russia for a couple years, and just imprinted in my brain is standing in long lines waiting for the lady behind the desk with her big stamp to put her official mark on your paper, and you wait and you wait and wait. She takes a break, and you wait and she comes back, and all that waiting to find out, you needed a different stamp from a different government official before you could get this stamp. So you have to go to a whole nother office and get that stamp and then come back, and it's just like endless cycle of bureaucracy. So although there probably are the ensuring consistency and order and reliability, it can get abused and be super inefficient. Another example was the structuration theory, which is centered around the personalities within the organization. I believe there's an aspect of truth in this, and what I don't like about it is that without knowing who the personalities are within the organization, you really can't understand the organization. So I feel this way, especially about, maybe a new job. Like, you read it on paper, who they are, what their priorities and their values and their goals are, but until you know the people, especially leadership, who you're going to be working for, that's a whole new, that's where what it is. That's where the culture of the organization is. So you really need to know that. Then applying our case or a theory to our case study. So for our case study, I applied the structuration theory, which I felt like would help understand how Merck got so far off track. Assuming that they have policies and guidelines to ensure that the company makes ethical decisions somewhere along the line, the policies and procedures were overruled by the louder voice of organizational culture. The process that got them in the place where they were willing to, disregard what their scientists were warning them, absolutely disregard what the FDA was telling them to do, just shows that there were what the structuration theory called signification, or how things are interpreted, domination, how power is distributed, and legitimization, so what is deemed moral and should be done. So those things were unwritten, obviously, but still created an atmosphere that allowed that kind of unethical behavior to take place, and not just in one department. It was throughout, it seems like. So that's all I have. Thanks.